age to purchase and consume cannabis in your region. This production is for adults only. Welcome to the Cannabis 101 podcast, part of the Cannabis Life Experience. Your guide through the legalization and consumption of cannabis in Canada and beyond. Join us on this journey and adventure with the wonderful plant. Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 83 of the Cannabis 101 podcast. This is hour number 2. My name is Dean Millard, and remember, on this show, it's not just about getting high, it's about getting healthy. Do we talk about getting high? Do we talk about the intoxication? Sure, but we also talk about many of the different kind of benefits that this plant can give you. And there is certainly one unique way, I think, that we get things started on this show before we get into the nuts and bolts, and that's by finding out, what's your groove?
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Can you dig it?
Kinda grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Pipe in a crate, long in a flint.
This is great. This is the bee's knees.
Can you dig it?
So when I ask you, what's your groove, I'm wondering that while you're watching this show, if indeed you are grooving with something, maybe it's a joint, maybe it's a bong, maybe it's just some CBD like I had on Monday, some nice CBD tea. But whatever you're grooving with, edibles, I don't know, let me know what it might be. Hit me up on Twitter at the Cannabis 101. You can also reach us on Instagram and Facebook at the Cannabis 101 podcast. And you can chime in and remain anonymous if you'd like to. And that is by email, cannabis101podcast at gmail.com. All right. I am going to be grooving with a bit of a rarity for me in the last little while, a joint, particularly since I was getting over pneumonia, but feeling much better today. And I'm going with 48 North's Franco, well, it's Strain Hunters, Franco's Lemon Cheese. Now, this is something, a cultivar that Chris and I did way back when it was called What's Your Strain? And now it's called Know Your Buds. I was really impressed with the story behind this. Franco Roja was just a legendary cannabis advocate. Unfortunately, lost his life trying to heal people and help people with malaria by using CBD and some products. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be grooving with. And got the old hemp wick lighter there. I highly recommend it for anybody out there. You're not inhaling lighter fluid, and you're not burning the joint as much as well. Now, I suck at lighting. Oftentimes I canoe it, so we will see as I get my groove on. Check back in the archives at the Cannabis 101 podcast, and you can get information about Franco's Lemon Cheese. Delicious. Okay, let's find out now what's coming down the hash pipe on this particular episode. Excuse me there, getting me a little too much of the Franco's Lemon Cheese. As mentioned, I don't smoke a lot of joints as much as I certainly used to, or use the bongs as much as I used to. On this program, Fatty Kamel from All Risks Insurance Brokers, we are going to discuss cannabis insurance and what you should know if you're going into the space, if you're growing at home, depending on, if you're rec or medical, and just how bad the stigma really is. I mean, wait till you hear the story that Fatty will tell about the reaction they received. And they're an insurance company. They're the farthest thing from actually having cannabis in your hand. It was just the word. Unbelievable. Chris Ianson, regional manager from Plant Life Cannabis, is going to drop by. We've got a little Dukem. I almost said Duke Nukem. We got some Dukem from Royal City Cannabis. Looking forward. This is just gorgeous. Wait till you get a look at this stuff. It's absolutely awesome. And our cannabis question is about CBD on this episode. We will also bring you what pairs well with cannabis. We'll tell you about the Weed Weekly and the giveaway we do every Friday. Oh, and I want to mention a slight change in programming for the Cannabis 101 podcast. A little while ago, we went from one show and split it up into 2 hours, Monday and Wednesday. Starting next week, so episode 84, hour number 1 will come out Tuesday mornings. And so we'll have a show on Tuesday, a show on Wednesday, and then individual segments will come out Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And we'll give you the weekends off most likely, although we might have one-hitters coming out on the weekends. So if you don't see a show on Monday, that's why. The hour number 1 will now be coming out Tuesday mornings. Hour number 2, as usual, will come out Wednesday mornings. I usually try to put them out at 4:20 a.m. Mountain Time, so you can set your clock for that if you really are excited about the show. So that's some news that we have for you about the Cannabis 101 podcast. Right now, let's get things started with the cannabis question.
It's prize time. Chime in on the cannabis question.
Okay.
And you could win a Cannabis 101 podcast prize pack.
Pipe and a crepe, bong and a blint.
Hit us up on any of our social media feeds or email us at cannabis101podcast@gmail.com.
Okay, here we go.
So the question today, and if you're watching, you can see it on the screen. If you're listening and you'd like to check out the video version, just head to YouTube and search for the Cannabis 101 podcast. We have our channel up there. What do you specifically like about CBD? What do you get? What is your experience with CBD? I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up on Twitter at the Cannabis 101. You can get us on Facebook, the Cannabis 101 podcast. Same with Instagram, and you can email and you can be anonymous if you would like to cannabis101podcast@gmail.com. This comes in from Randy when we're talking about CBD concentrates, because I said last week I didn't know if there was shatter or batter or wax or anything like that you could use in something like the Slash from Stone Smiths. And he says Tweedle Farms produces a CBD concentrate that works in the Slash. They call it wax and is more solid than butter, but not like shatter. Scoops up with a loading tool just fine. That built-in loading tool is awesome. Randy goes on to say, CBD makes me feel fortified during the day. I also use a water-soluble powder in my Rockstar. Tweedle Farms also makes vape cartridges, and I will hit the hemp cart after a THC cart for balance. I can definitely feel a stronger effect together. That's my story. Take it easy, Randy. And for those out there, CBD is often something that you can use if you feel like it's too intense and too high. You can take some CBD, and it does help to bring that down. And as Randy was mentioning, he gets a bit of a balance. So thank you very much for that email, Randy. Really appreciate everybody who reaches out with questions, comments, or anything like that. For me, CBD, and I mentioned this earlier, just kind of takes the edge off, just rounds those sharp corners, if you will. I oftentimes will use CBD in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, I'll maybe jump into some THC or something like that. Also for tolerance breaks, when I want to take a break from THC, but I still want to get the benefits from the cannabis plant for my mental health, I will often use CBD in my Volcano hybrid, the Supernova that I picked up at Nova Cannabis on Jasper Ave in Edmonton, Chris Ionson's old stomping grounds. So I will often use CBD when I'm doing tea breaks, as well as in the morning. I take a spray or capsules, whatever I have on hand, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. I treat it just like my vitamins that I take and my St. John's wort and some of the other things that I use for my mental health. And CBD, it's amazing. I used to run out of it more often. I very rarely do now, but whenever I do, or if I've missed, for some reason, I missed out on for a day or two, I start noticing it just to feel a little bit different. So for me, it's a big part of my regime and my routine, and I'm really excited about the future research into the cannabis plant and some of the more cool things that we are certainly going to get from that research. So we have a Cannabis 101 podcast prize pack for anybody that chimes in. You go into a draw in a hat, and we pull out a name, and then we give away a prize pack. Just for chiming in, what do you specifically like about CBD? Hit me up on Twitter at the Cannabis 101. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook, the Cannabis 101 Podcast. And if you would just like to email me, feel free. Cannabis 101 Podcast at gmail.com. Love to hear from listeners, viewers, and cannabis fans alike. All right, as for what pairs well with cannabis, that is anything that you like to do with cannabis. I'd love to hear from you on that. For me, it's binge watching. I'm a big Western guy. So right now I have the free trial of one of the apps that's showing the show, that has the show Rawhide on it. So I've been just going through crazy episodes, like 5-6 seasons, just ripping through them on my spare time. And I love it. I love to have, I like to, when I watch something, I kind of put myself in the place of these characters. Cannabis certainly helps with me doing that. So binge watching, I'm really enjoying Rawhide. You set up the volcano with either the bag or the whip, and there you go. It's like you're going on a trail drive while high, or enjoying some CBD, whatever the case might be. So that's what pairs well with cannabis for me. I would love to hear from you on what you pair well with cannabis. All right, on hour number one, we usually have David Wiley from the OZ on This Week in Cannabis News, Malcolm LaBelle on the business of cannabis. She's from the Green Generation Co. Those are two very important partners and supporters of this show. We also have had Andre from Regal Cigars be a big fan and a big supporter. We've been able to give away a lot of Regal cigars, which are just amazing. Those are mint. And we also love to say thanks to some other local supporters in Edmonton, the makers of The Slash, Stonesmiths, a great local company. As Randy was mentioning in his email about the built-in loader, here it is right there. That's how you scoop things up on The Slash, and then you load it in there. I've got some wax for Quest in there. That's really nice. And then you got the different temperature settings. Just 3 clicks, and it changes the temperature setting. You got green, blue, and red, and it's so cool. And they're actually making this thing even better, if you can believe it. There is a new chamber on the way. It's a redesign of the internal coil, and this thing only takes 4 seconds to heat up. Apparently, it's going to be faster, and we're all going to be having bigger clouds. So it's really cool. If you'd like to get some information, head to stonesmiths.ca. If you're a retail store, check that out as well and get it in your store. And if you've picked up one of these, send me an email. Let me know where you bought it from. Did you buy it directly from them? Did you buy it from your local store? I'd love to hear from people of where they have picked up a very cool vape pen. Okay, we are going to get into the insurance game, and I learned so much from this conversation with Fatty Kamel from All Risk Insurance Brokers, and we're going to hear from him right after we hear the Weed song from the artist My Dead Dog.
So smoke some grass. It's time to bust out this podcast.
Fatty, it is great to chat with you. I know you and I have been going back and forth for quite a while. Unfortunately, some pneumonia got in the way, but we're finally getting around to chatting. So thanks very much for being on the Cannabis 101 podcast. How are things out east as Western Canada begins to thaw out? What are things like out east in the Toronto area?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dean. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're feeling better. That's the most important thing. And yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate you making some time to have us on the show. So I'm currently in Mississauga, and weather looks good, but it's a little deceiving. I know we're not out of the woods just yet. But yeah, sun is shining, but there's still snow. So things can change really quickly, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I remember I was in Toronto in the area for the World Juniors in 2015, and while the temperature was much warmer than it was in Alberta, that wind and that cold that you guys get off coming off that lake in the wintertime, I would not want to have to deal with it. I'll take our dry and lots of snow out here. But we're here today to talk about insurance, and this is something that is obviously relatively new for the cannabis industry, as is the cannabis industry. So I guess I always like to ask people kind of how long they've been involved in the particular industry. So how long have you been involved in the insurance industry, and when did you get into the cannabis aspect of insurance?
Yeah, for sure. So insurance, been about 10 going on 11 years now. So I just started at, TD Insurance, doing regular home and auto, not too fun stuff. I was fresh out of school and looking to make some money. So been doing that for about 10 years. I think the neat thing about, my career over the last 10 years is I've got to see a lot of different, call them departments, operations, different sides of the insurance business. And that really helps me kind of understand the full circle of how insurance works from, the broker side where I am now, all the way to the underwriters who actually look at your applications and price them and decide, what type of coverage they want to give you, et cetera. So that really has helped me just understand, from start to finish, the entire process, whether you're client facing or you're on the company side. In terms of cannabis insurance, yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah, keep going.
Awesome. In terms of cannabis insurance specifically, started working with a large LP in early 2016. And that's kind of what triggered me to say, well, this is something that we need to focus more on, me personally. And that's when things started in early 2016.
Was there, unfortunately, the cannabis industry, there's still a stigma towards cannabis. So, there's no doubt about it. Was there any kind of stigma that you felt when you started working with the cannabis industry? Did people be like, oh, cannabis, or, kind of look down upon it? And has that maybe changed since 2016, if there indeed was any?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely with insurance companies, at the time there was probably only 2 or 3 that even entertained the cannabis word. Meanwhile, the rest of them did definitely have that kind of negative tone or reaction when we asked if it's something they do. And it's funny because we're looking at insurance. We're not even looking at, actual cannabis use or operations. Like, we're looking at insuring the company. And yeah, definitely felt a little bit of a stigma. I would say that the biggest one where I was like, wow, this is like still happening. Last year, we were looking to open a new office. So I used to work for or under another broker with all risks. And as of May 2020, so last year, we opened our own office. And at the time, we were looking for, locations to rent. We were really close at signing a lease. And sure enough, the realtor that we were working with came back and said, the landlord looked you up on LinkedIn and they didn't want to work with anybody in the cannabis kind of space. And yeah, to me, it was like, hold on a second. If you really look at it, cannabis is actually what's paying the bills. Like, that's how I'm going to get you your rent money. But really, they saw it as, oh man, they're around cannabis, they're going to sit there and smoke, and we're not going to get our money for the month. When in fact, it was the opposite. It was, this is a company that today is in an industry that's growing and that has a great opportunity ahead of them. They'll probably be here for a really long time. So when I felt that was the really first time I said, wow, and this is last year, that it's very strong, the stigma. And I always knew, like, at home or within families, certain cultures, yeah, there's going to be that stigma, but I didn't expect it in that way outside in the professional world. That was a little bit of a surprise for me, right?
That's just crazy. I mean, you are feeling the stigma because of the word cannabis on paper. Like, your business, there would never be any cannabis in there. Like, that's amazing that just the word alone brought out that stigma and that fear in people.
It scared them. Yeah, it scared them. And for me, I'm a pretty calm guy in general. Like, I understand things happen for a reason, and you just got to deal with them and move on. So as soon as it happened, I was like, all right, what's next? This is not the place for us. And I kept moving, but it just made me really realize that people don't understand what this is, or they don't care to understand what this is. Because if you really do your homework, this is not only a real industry, but it's something that has helped a lot of people. That's way less dangerous than a lot of things that we put in our bodies or are acceptable to us. And people just don't see it. And that's fine. They may never. But at the end of the day, I think it's important for people like us, your show, people like me, to really let others understand that it's not what it was or what you guys think it used to be. This is something way more positive and powerful.
Mm-hmm. That reaction could be straight out of a remake of Reefer Madness, like Reefer Madness 2020, where people are still scared that there's going to be riots in the streets over cannabis. And you know what? Unfortunately for those people, they're going to be the ones that are going to be left behind in this industry if they don't want to get on board. Like, people think of the cannabis industry as a bunch of guys sitting around, or girls, growing weed, smoking it, and getting high. They don't think about, the lawyers, the insurance, the carpenters, and all these things that are also part of the industry, because somebody has to build those stores. And if you don't want to get into the industry, sure, that's fine. But look at the 2020 retail sales numbers, 120% increase, taking a bite out of the illicit market. This industry is growing, and it's going to be their own loss if they don't want to get involved. And that's their personal choice.
For sure, definitely. I think the industry is just getting started, especially here in Ontario. We haven't even seen what retail looks like yet in Ontario. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think, the ones that decide that this is something that's acceptable and that it's a real business that can make lots of money, definitely will be ahead. The challenge, I think, for me is the ones who will take, for example, prescription medication or drink alcohol like it's completely okay and acceptable. But the minute you talk about cannabis, they have this look on their face like, oh, that's gross. Well, hold on a second. If you really look at what you're putting into your body, and that just tells me it's not a matter of facts. It's not somebody that read on these two items and has made their decision. It's a matter of opinion. It's how they feel, how they were taught to feel growing up. And I think eventually, it might take a while, but eventually that's easier to change, because once things, around you are more acceptable, it makes it that much easier. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, science is going to change a lot of that. The amount of research being done on the plants, and I've said this, many times on this show, that the fact that I can go to my local store, buy a joint, come home, smoke it without my neighbor calling the cops is awesome. But the biggest thing about legalization is the amount of research that can now be done. A lot more of it we're going to know, and then that science is going to start convincing people that it's not dangerous, that it is a plant, and it can be used correctly, be very, very beneficial. beneficial. And I wonder kind of how working in the cannabis space has improved, the work life for you guys, getting into that space when maybe other people didn't want to. Has that helped grow the all risks insurance and brokers?
Yeah, for sure. So I can remember I believe it was summer of 2016, there were probably 3 brokers at Lyft, that downtown Toronto. And 2019, I was out of town, unfortunately. Remember those days, Dean, when we could be out of town? Yeah. It sounded weird just saying it, but yeah. So I was out of the country in 2019 during Lyft, and there was probably 30 brokers, insurance brokers at Lyft. So definitely being there nice and early has helped. In terms of growth, yeah, it's really allowed me to focus in and specialize in one specific area. So prior to cannabis, I was still working with any type of business. So manufacturing companies, restaurants, you name it, any type of business that requires insurance. But once, I was in there early enough and working with, the right clients, it really allowed me to just say, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to specialize in. And it definitely gave us a sense of direction, obviously a sense of growth, because, the cannabis industry was new and growing. And we were there right from the beginning, which is awesome.
Yeah, indeed. Just to be able to build those kind of early relationships. What about yourself personally? Is cannabis a part of your personal life?
Yeah, definitely. So I always tell people I've been working in cannabis for 5 years, but I've been studying it for 30 plus. So definitely something that I'm aware about, how the good and bad of it, because obviously just like anything, if you don't control it, it can be a negative, right? Mm-hmm. Anything. Food is great, but if you don't treat it right, it can hurt you. So definitely, I think there was times, when I was younger growing up where, it did affect me. It did kind of slow me down. But at the end of the day, it's the way I was using it. I didn't understand how it needs to be used to your advantage. And today, definitely still using, I would say more kind of CBD, relaxation, sleep, pain relief type of stuff. But definitely something I use daily, and I've gotten some of my family members as well to use and try CBD. Like my mom has really chronic arthritis, corporal tunnel, so a lot of joint pain, and the amount of meds that she takes over a course of a day, it is crazy when you look at it. So I'm trying to remove those and replace them with oil or lotions. We've only been a couple months, so I don't think she's super comfortable just yet. But I think eventually I would love to see majority of those things gone and just one bottle of really good CBD oil.
Yeah, it's and that's kind of our question, our cannabis question this week is, what specifically do you like about CBD? And for me, it's just that, people, and probably still do, they talk about like, oh, I took the edge off last night with 3 fingers of scotch or something like that, right? Well, for CBD, it takes the edge off of things without intoxication. The word high is different for many different people. You can be a high on life, for relationships. So I would say it just doesn't get me intoxicated, but still gives me an elevated feeling of relief, and some of my anxiety comes down, aches and pains and things like that. So I also agree. I don't ever pretend that CBD is a cure-all, but it can just help with a lot of things. I'll use Alzheimer's and dementia. Well, it's not going to give that memory back yet. We don't know, but it's going to relax that patient maybe when they're in those agitated states, and it also could be better for the caregiver as well. So I just think CBD can be very beneficial in many different areas with, not, cure all, but helping all.
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to note that. Like, for example, I always tell whoever I'm speaking to about CBD and how good it can be for you. They ask me like, oh, well, is it strong? Is it powerful? And I kind of tell them, no, compared to the drugs that you're taking, no,
Right.
it's not that strong. And that's the best part about it is, it's not a narcotic. It's going to give you a sense of relief without that really strong medical, I guess, or medicine type of feeling. So, that part for me, I think is important to differentiate. Some people think they only want to do it if it's going to give them the relief that their current drugs would give them. And it's important to recognize the difference. Right?
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So we're 2+ years into legalization, and I know you've been working in the cannabis space before that. But are there a lot of options currently in the cannabis industry? When you compare it to some of the other industries, are there a lot of options, or I wonder. You guys got in early. Are people now rushing to try to get into the cannabis insurance game?
So yeah, that's a great question. There's definitely more options than there was 3 years ago, but in terms of a lot, no. There's still only a few insurance companies who are not only willing to accept cannabis companies, but who can actually offer the right coverages, so that limits that we need, and at the right price. So I have a company who says, yeah, we'll insure retail stores, but our minimum premium for a retail store is $20K, for example. So it's like, yeah, they'll do it, but who's going to pay that? Nobody. It just doesn't make sense. So the ones that actually do it and do it well, there's still only a handful. And us being there that early has definitely helped build the relationship with them. But we've seen more players entering. So for example, a retail store in Ontario up until December was required to carry 10 million in liability insurance. That was just changed in December to 5 million. But previous to December, there was only 2 companies who would do the full 10 million. I had some other companies saying, hey, yeah, we'll do it, but we can only do 5, or our price is through the roof. So, there's a lot of companies who want to or say they will, but just like any insurance, they're only going to give up as much risk that they're willing to take. And that's the challenge, is finding a company who can do it well, meet all of the legal requirements that for an LP, for example, needs to operate, and doing it within a price that they can afford and that they can continue to operate.
Do you think that, that's kind of, there's maybe they're still a little bit leery? It seems like you and what you guys are doing really believe in this industry, and maybe there's only that partial buy-in from some people out there in the insurance industry.
Yeah, so insurance in general is really slow to react. So they're only going to put up what they legally have to. They don't want to give up or risk more than they need to. That's the business they're in, is mitigating their risk, right? Mitigating the chance that they're going to have to pay out. It sounds bad, but that's the business that they're in. So as much as possible, yeah, they're only going to give you as much as they have to, as much as Health Canada or the AGCO says you need this to operate, they'll give just that and no more if they don't need to. But to answer your question, the companies still have, or are they hesitant? I would say, yeah, they don't want to, insurance is all about data. It's, you take previous history and data to forecast what you expect to happen. Because there is no data, because there is no previous history of claims in cannabis, they're very hesitant to put up certain limits. I'll give you a really quick example of an early policy that we were working on. So in 2016, leading up to 2017, or leading up to legalization, one of the large LPs that we were working with required product recall coverage. So at the time, they were only medicinal, and they were looking to get into rec. So they required product recall for cannabis. There was no such product. By product, I mean coverage for insurance companies. It just didn't exist. So we sent out, a couple applications to a few different companies. We got one quote back. The other company basically came back and said, hey, what is the price of the other quote that you got? Can you share that with us? They had no clue where to even begin. So we kind of helped them and said, yeah, this is what Health Canada requires for the LPs to do business. You better, be able to offer that, or else, you're going to be left behind. So definitely something that we had to help the insurance companies get more comfortable with. And I think as years pass and more history and data shows that this is actually a great risk from an insurance perspective for insurance companies, because the amount of security and compliance and reporting requirements that are put on an LP or even a retail store is so high that it already reduces the chance of a claim or of the insurance company having to pay out. And when I realized that was pretty early. Even when I worked for the insurance companies, we did an inspection on a grow in BC, and it was a medical grow at the time. And we got this inspection back, I believe this was in about 2014. And we got this inspection back, and the whole purpose of us inspecting the business was to say, hey, do we want to insure cannabis grows? Yes or no? The way we knew a cannabis grow was, those shady hanging lights and, garbage bags everywhere. So when we saw this, we looked at it and said, hold on a second. They have put so much into, fire safety and inspections, and they've done a lot of our mitigation efforts already. So they're already reducing the chance of something happening compared to, the metal shop across the street that nobody is looking at, right? So I think it was important for us to just show the insurance companies that, hey, listen, these are actually much better and much more profitable businesses to insure, even though you don't have the data yet. All of these reasons show why the chance of a claim here is much less.
Yeah, it's so funny. There's nothing to rely on. This is the starting point for it. So here we are looking at www.cannabisinsuranceSolutions.ca, and this is where people can go and find out how they can work with you. So maybe tell us and our viewers and listeners what type of clients that you have worked with, you are working with during your time in cannabis insurance.
Yeah, for sure. So we teamed up with a couple large LPs, really early on, and that helped us just understand everything that you need kind of from day one. So what will you need in 6 months? Once you get your sales license, what type of insurance will you need then? And that's really helped us, work today with, say, a new micro, for example, that's just getting their license, or that's just getting a location. We can really and confidently speak to them on timelines and rough estimates of how much insurance is going to cost, so that they can plan accordingly. So yeah, in terms of the type of clients, for sure, LPs are some of our biggest clients, of course. We even insure consultants. So if you're a cannabis consultant, you need errors and emissions insurance. Any type of consultant needs E&O or errors and emissions. We insure accessory and manufacturers. So grinders, bongs, pipes. People get those things made overseas, brought over here. What else? Of course, retail stores. So we're working towards being the retail insurance leader in the country, and we're definitely on our way to achieve that. And yeah, retail is a big part of what we do, especially right now in Ontario. Like, we're probably speaking to minimum 5 retailers, new retailers every week, that are either close to licensing or have just applied for licensing. So it's definitely a really busy time for retail. But other than that, any business around cannabis that involves the cannabis word. So maybe you're a transportation company, you're a contractor, and you work we insure a camera contractor, and he does IT and camera work for cannabis stores. He requires a specialized policy. So anything with that cannabis word, your regular insurance companies will not insure you, even if you're around it, like just as your clients. And really what we focus on today, I would say, is definitely retail as well as cultivation. So, the LPs require so many different policies. I'll just name off a few of them, but they require directors and officers insurance to protect the board and the entity from being sued by the shareholders. They require their product recall. Of course, they require insurance for the actual facility and all of the physical property inside. So whether that's actual flower, the equipment, etc. They require general liability Away from the product recall, you need general liability if someone just comes to your building and slips and falls, for example. So many different policies that an LP needs, and us working with them really early just helped understand the needs of everybody after that.
It's such a vast game with everything being so new. Just that word cannabis, like you said, requires that insurance. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about retail and LPs, but quick question about, we're allowed to grow 4 plants, at least everybody except Manitoba. Quebec, they appealed and the government lost, but they're appealing. Hopefully Manitoba gets overturned. But are there impacts to your insurance if you are growing your 4 plants at home, or maybe you're a medical grower?
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question. So as long as you're growing your 4 plants, because it's legally allowed, the insurance companies have had to build it into their policy. So basically saying, yep, you're allowed to grow the legal maximum that you can. However, they've also included a special limit for cannabis. So it's interesting. Your existing home policy would have a special limit for certain items. These items are usually easily stolen. So they're small, like jewelry, a watch, for example, or even a bike. Bikes are stolen often. So they're either, they are easily stolen and high value, or can be high value. So, some of those bikes, not the ones like I rode to school, but some of those professional bikes can be very costly. Of course, jewelry, watches, they have special limits on those items, because even though you have a huge, 100,000 in coverage, these special items they want to make sure you don't have one watch that's 100,000 and it gets stolen. So they've actually done the same for cannabis. They've said any type of cannabis in your home, the maximum, I believe most companies today put a maximum of $1,000 on cannabis. So let's say you purchase cannabis at the store, you bring it home, either gets stolen or there's a fire, for example. The maximum that you could claim for cannabis products is $1,000. In terms of affecting your home insurance, as long as you're only growing the 4 plants, it will not impact your home insurance. Anything after that can definitely have an impact. One, on your premium. So if you tell your insurance company your price could go up, most likely your price won't go up. If they can't or don't want to insure you, they'll just say, nope, we don't do any more than 4, and you have to go find another option. But the other challenge is not just the price going up, it's if you notify them and they say, no, we're not going to insure you, go somewhere else.
Yeah, so really it's probably impacting medical growers who, a lot of medical growers who have their license do grow more than 4 plants. If you're the 4 plants on the rec side, you're probably, you're okay, but the medical side, people should be looking into that.
Definitely. Yeah, I would highly recommend speaking to someone first before calling your insurance company. And that's the great thing about having a broker, is we kind of act as a filter between you and the insurance company. So if you called your insurer today, let's say you're with X bank insurance, and you called them and said, yeah, I'm growing 5 plants, you've already told them what you're doing, and there's nothing that you can do to take that back. Where what we do is we have that discussion first. So I say, hey, sure, you have 5 plants. How are they being grown? Or can you show me a picture? And then we find ways before we notify the insurance company that will help our case. Obviously, we have to be accurate, because at the end of the day, if there's a claim, I'm not helping you if I don't make sure or do my best to make sure the insurance company is going to be there for us. But there's ways to position it to the insurance company that will make it much more attractive than it can be, right?
So what advice would you give somebody who is maybe already in the retail game or looking to get into the retail game, looking to buy a franchise? What sort of advice would you give them if they were looking to get into that, as far as, what insurance options or what sort of things they should be researching?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I get it a lot, especially today. People just asking, like, is it too late? Is it, there's a lot of retail stuff happening. Should we jump in? And the biggest thing I tell people is, now compared to 2017, it's no longer, hey, we sell cannabis and open your doors and you're going to make a ton of money. Like, the business now has to have a real strategic plan, and it's a real business. Like, we insured one of the first stores that opened up downtown Toronto on day one that they were allowed to open. And, at that time, it didn't matter what you were selling. It didn't matter what your name was. You were going to have a lineup for days and weeks to come. And today it's completely different. The good thing is, there's still a lot of opportunity. Like, we speak to retailers in Godrich, in Innisville, in all of these markets that I personally think are much more attractive than downtown Toronto. Yes, you don't have the flow of traffic or the population, but in those areas, I feel like it'll be a lot more consistent, especially if you're looking at, Innisville for the summer and you really get those peak seasons. I think there's a lot of opportunity depending on your location, depending on your brand. It is definitely a challenge. Like, it's not going to be easy, that's for sure. But I don't think, today it's definitely not too late. You just have to make sure you're doing it right. You're doing it with the right team. And that's a big thing that as of recently, I have kind of added and realized how important it is. So, the insurance companies that do cannabis, there can be accessed by any broker. As long as you have a contract with that company, you can reach out to them and insure a cannabis store. The difference is what additional kind of expertise and value are you adding to your client? So now when I speak to a client, we have built such a good network of, technology people, branding, consultants, lawyers, whatever it is that you're looking for that we can help with. And for me, to be honest, that part of my job is just as rewarding, probably more rewarding than insurance. Insurance is a piece of paper. It says, yep, you're covered if anything happens. I take that very seriously. I want to make sure you have the best coverage available to you. But the other side of it for me is, hey, if I can introduce you to somebody and they can help you bring your business to the next level, I just feel like everybody wins, right? I win. The person that I'm sending them to wins, and obviously you as the client, if you're gaining knowledge and expertise from somebody that can really push you to another step, again, it's good for everybody.
All right, so we've chatted about retail, even home grows and big LPs. What about on the micro side or some of the smaller craft growers? Is it the same sort of insurance that they need as the big LPs, but just maybe on a smaller scale, or is it completely different?
So for the most part, very consistent with what an LP would need. I mean, I always like to split insurance into kind of two buckets. One is your physical property, so physical assets, whether that's, product for sale, equipment, etc., buildings. The other is your liability, and that's if you're being sued due to your business, whether someone tries your product and tries to sue you or comes to your building, slips and falls. So, a lot of those, we call them exposures, are the exact same, whether you're a micro or you're an LP. Yes, at a smaller scale. But in terms of the type of policies or coverages that you need, they're very, very similar. Something that we've helped, I guess, with micros do is there's a product recall requirement for an LP if you're selling into the OCS. So not even for an LP, for anybody who's selling product into the OCS, they require $15 million in product recall coverage. That coverage obviously can be pretty costly. And what some micros have done is if they're selling, so let's say you're a micro, you don't have a sales license and you're selling through the LP. So you're just selling to the LP and they're selling it through their sales license to the OCS. You can negotiate with the LP and include your name, your products on their recall insurance policy because they're the ones at the end with the sales license. And that has helped some of our clients kind of keep costs down, especially in the beginning stages. So those are some things that I think with micros, we try to help them and say, yes, you still need all of the same coverage as an LP does, but at that level, they're pricey or they're costly. What can we do today to make sure you're still protected and save you, look after your dollar as well?
Now, the one thing about the legalization process is that it was, federally legalized and then handed out to the provinces to decide what they want to do. It's why we see very, very strict things going on in Quebec. Well, here in Alberta, you get a store, you get a store. Oprah's giving out cannabis stores here in Alberta because everybody seems to have one. So is that difficult? I don't know if you work with a whole lot of clients that are outside of Ontario, but the different provincial regulations, do they come in play? So there's different insurance options depending on the province, or when it comes to his insurance, is it all one set thing across the country?
For sure. No, that's a great question. So early on, we actually started retail out in Alberta because you guys were ready much faster than Ontario was. So we teamed up with an association out in Alberta, and we're providing their members retail insurance at a discounted rate for being a member with them, and that really helped us understand the differences between Alberta and Ontario. One example. That 10 million requirement that we used to have here in Ontario, it's now down to 5. Alberta never had that. So technically, a store in Alberta can have 2 million in liability, the same as a restaurant or some convenience store beside them. Where here in Ontario, when retail did start, we had to have 10 million. So all of a sudden, rates are much higher because you require more coverage. So, to answer your question kind of as short as possible, yes, the differences between provinces are important more than for protection or for coverage. It's for you to do the best thing for your client. If I'm insuring a bunch of Ontario stores and someone in Alberta calls me and I don't know the differences, he's probably going to pay more than he needs to. So yeah, it's important to understand the differences in terms of from a coverage perspective, whether you are covered in Ontario or covered in BC. The coverage is Canada-wide. So as long as you've notified the insurance company, let's say you're a consultant and you do business right across Canada, as long as they're aware of it, then yeah, your coverage applies to the entire country. The most important thing for us, of course, is when we work with clients in those other provinces, is one, you have to, as a broker, you have to be licensed to sell insurance in that province. So that's a little bit of a barrier for us to get into certain provinces because the insurance licensing requirements may be different or may be challenging. So what we've done is we actually went, of course, and got licensed in Alberta. We're currently working on licensing in BC. That one's a little bit trickier because of how their insurance in general just works. And then we've teamed up in the meantime with some brokers in each province where the need has arose. So in BC, we have a broker that we partner with. Actually, just last week, we found a broker in Nova Scotia that we sent a client to from Nova Scotia. So yeah, we're definitely have to be creative and be able to adapt and insure people in every province. That's kind of the biggest challenge. I would say it's more insurance related, not necessarily cannabis related.
This has been very, very eye-opening and certainly educational, and I think the listeners and the viewers, especially those looking or in the cannabis space, can get something out of it. And I always like to wrap up all of my interviews with one question, and that is, what do you think is the next big thing when it comes to cannabis? Now, this could be in the insurance or just in general, but what do you think is the next big thing to take cannabis and the industry by storm?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sure if you asked that 2 or 3 years ago, everyone would be talking about drinks and all the stuff that we're seeing in the more mature markets. Me personally, and I've been kind of waiting for this. I anticipated it was going to come next year. I don't think it will, but the U.S. federally legalizing, I think that's really going to open up a lot of markets, a lot of opportunities. Whether it's Canada to the US, import and export, whether it's internationally. I feel like that's going to be really what changes the the industry in the world, not just for Canada. Once the U.S. federally says okay, a lot of countries and companies will really start to pay more attention.
I could not possibly agree more. I mean, whether you want to like it or not, the United States of America is a trendsetter. I think the UN getting on board, seems like a year ago, maybe it was only probably a couple of months ago, but once the United States gets on board, and that's going to really make things interesting. It's going to force Canada to take a look at its regulations. If we want to be able to compete with the US, we're going to have to ease up on some of the regulations, because this is my analogy. We're in an 800-meter race with a 200-meter head start, and we could get passed on the backstretch by the Americans if we're not careful.
Yeah, very easily, man. The U.S. is good at a couple things, and they do them very well. And I think one of them is consumer goods. They know how to get things in the hands of people at a cheap price. So for sure, if we're not careful, we were first, but if we're not careful, we can definitely be left behind very easily. And it doesn't mean companies in Canada won't still be profitable, or we won't still, your company or your store won't still make money. You just won't be the leader. You will be second or even third for that matter. And for Canada, for the amount of cannabis use that we have and where we are today, there's no reason we should be left behind.
Yeah, we should be leading this race by a country mile, or kilometer, as we should say. Fatty, this has been a lot of fun, and certainly eye-opening and very educational for me, and hopefully my listeners and my viewers as well. Thank you so much, and here's to spring being on its way, and we can actually get outside and enjoy cannabis together.
For sure. Thanks, Dean, for having me. I really appreciate it. And if anybody wants to, more information on how to get in the industry, or maybe you're already in the industry and having challenges with insurance, we'd definitely be glad to help. So I'll sign off with my favorite pen here. I picked it up at Lyft a couple years ago.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
Thanks a lot, Dean.
Great. Thank you so much, Fatty. Take care.
All the best. Thanks.
This is the Cannabis 101 podcast, part of the Cannabis life experience, turning the wheel of cannabis one toke at a time.
That was a really eye-opening conversation, particularly the stigma that they faced when they just wanted to rent a place. It's unbelievable, but good information for those of you growing at home as well, to know if you're over those 4 plants, your insurance rates and certainly things could impact, and good to reach out to a broker before you talk to your insurance company first as well. So great stuff. Thanks big time to Fatty. We've been trying to get that one lined up for a while, so it's good to get some education about the cannabis insurance space. Not sure what we're going to do with one-hitters this week. We didn't get a chance to do it with Fatty, but we will have it at the Cannabis101podcast.ca if we do indeed get it up this weekend. We'll look out for somebody to help us out with that. That's also where you can subscribe to the Weed Weekly and qualify for our Friday giveaway, but it is only for subscribers. So head to the Cannabis101podcast.ca, click subscribe, and you get it every Friday in your inbox. We recap the show. We also take a look at a few other cool things, and we have a weekly giveaway as well.
The Cannabis life experience. It's not just about getting high. It's about getting healthy. Turning the wheel of cannabis, one toke at a time.
Told you about the new chamber coming to the Slash. Also something new coming from Stone Smiths in April. They're working on it now. You can look for it in the spring. I've tried to get details about it, but they are very, very tight-lipped over there. So if it's anything like the Slash, you're going to love it. Just takes 4 seconds to heat up and fire away. As I mentioned, there's the 3 temperature settings. And the best thing about the Slash is the double click 12-second auto fire mode. So you got the slash for concentrates, and I can't wait to see what these guys have coming this April. Check it out, stonesmiths.ca.
Who grew it? What's the terpene profile? Who created it? What is the lineage? How much THC? What's in a name? This is Know Your Buds, a close-up look at cultivars you should try. Or try again. Joining Dean is our educator, Chris Ianson.
Always good to be exploring more cultivars on Know Your Buds as I welcome in my good friend Chris Ianson, Regional Manager, Plant Life Cannabis, and you were a traveling man for a long time, my friend, but you're now back in the City of Champions and working with a bunch of stores, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but nice to be back home again, isn't it?
Yeah, Dean, it is for sure, buddy. I feel like the past 6 weeks have been a tour of Alberta for me. But yeah, I'm just getting back to Edmonton now, and yeah, gonna kind of set up shop down here now, and I'm pumped about it.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited about what we're chatting about today. We are going to be doing a cultivar called Dukem. It's a hybrid. 65-35, and on the legacy market, or the gray market, the illicit market, it was for years called Duke Nukem. We'll tell everybody about that in just a little bit, but the licensed producer that produces this is Royal City Cannabis, and that is the rec brand of CannTX Sciences. So give us a little bit of a background into Royal City and what CannTX Sciences is all about.
Yeah, for sure, Dino. They're a privately owned company, cannabis producer. They were founded in 2013 out of Puce Lynch, Ontario, and their current CEO and president, Mike Abbott, and director Buck Young. They're the ones that founded the company, and they both play a significant role in operations and day to day. In May of 2020, CannTX received their license from Health Canada to become an LP. And that's when the Royal City Cannabis brand was born. And the facility that they are growing their cannabis out of is located just south of Guelph, Ontario. And that's also known as the Royal City. So that kind of ties into the name of the LP. And there's also a rock band named Royal City, and they're from Guelph as well. So I wonder maybe the rock band's got some ties in there too.
Yeah, maybe this is like way back when Up Cannabis had all their songs named after tragically hip, or all their cultivars named after tragically hip songs, and you could put some on. Maybe we'll have to listen to some Royal City if we can find it while we're enjoying some of this at some point. And you know me, I'm a sucker for great stories and great backstories, and the background of this company when it comes to technology and what they're doing and how they're growing, man, I feel it's just amazing, and I definitely feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room when we're talking about this sort of thing, because it is so impressive and almost futuristic.
Yeah, big time, Gino. How they grow out their facility, and it's a 30,000 square foot facility. It's very, very science-based. It's a commercial scale grow with the in vitro plant tissue culture lab. And what that is there is they're doing propagation of cannabis plants where they are slicing off a little bit of tissue from a plant that they've selected, that they've enjoyed kind of how it grows. It's got all the characteristics that they're looking for. And then the plant is then grown in kind of like a petri dish environment. And it's just ideal for getting the clones to be grown with minimal issues, like they're going to be disease free, and it kind of takes the genetics back to the basics, really. That's
awesome. That is so impressive. Yeah. With some of these things that they are doing, and that's kind of just like that's impressive, but there's even more, right?
Yeah, Dean, there is. It's they have a biosafety lab as well. They've got a level 2 microbiology lab as well, and they've got 8 precision controlled grow rooms and a photobiology lab for crop optimization as well. So very very science based there, and actually with the employees that work there, there's over 50 people that are working at this facility. Over a third of them have science related degrees. There's a lot of PhDs and masters coming out of the staff there at CanTX.
That's pretty impressive. And, they obviously are producing some terrific cannabis, but they also, offer some of their systems to other different companies, don't they?
Yeah, this is kind of a neat little side, maybe not a side thing, because I'm sure they've been doing it for a while, but they offer their steady stem solutions. And this is an extra division of the company. And they offer to other cannabis producers that want to dial in their genetics. And it's their tissue propagation, like we talked about. And it's just an ideal way to grow, and it's their own kind of proprietary way. So it's pretty awesome that they are able to kind of spread that knowledge around to the other LPs out there, and we're going to see better cannabis all around because of it.
Impressive stuff for sure. All right, the website, if you're looking at Royal City Cannabis, is www.royalcitycannabis.co. You're looking at it if you are indeed watching us on our YouTube channel. If you're listening, check out the YouTube channel. We also stream on our social media channels. And I look at the website first. I like the colors. I like the font. So, it's visually appealing. You click on what to do, and there's not a lot there. Certainly, you can go and look at the cultivars that they have, and there's Dukem right there. I love the colors. I love the font. It stands out. For me, Chris, there's just not enough of it. There's just not enough information on this website. We just talked about some of the amazing things behind this company. I think they should be flexing and showing off a little bit with some of that stuff. So great colors, visually nice, just lacking and the information that I think they should be bragging about.
Yeah, well said. I agree with you, Dean. I would love to know more information about it, the growing process, and even I love seeing when cannabis companies show our team, meet the team. I want to know who your VP of cultivation is, and who your master growers are, and head of sales. I like seeing that on the website. So hopefully that's coming further down the line here from these guys. But I do like the kind of the different cultivar sections there that we're kind of scrolling through. How everyone's got its own kind of unique logo and kind of, I guess, theme. I think that's pretty sharp for sure. And then, Dino, I was a big fan of like if you click on the link right below there, it'll take you to like a terpene profile for each of their cultivars as well. And so It's a terpene analysis.
I did not see that, so I at first run through I missed that. So I will take a little bit back about the information, because there is plenty of information. So I missed that when we were first chatting about the website before we went through there, but that is definitely something that I appreciate from Royal City Cannabis. So, if they can throw in some information about how they do things and the people behind it, that's great. And then this information, I find this information really, really helpful, and I can't wait to dive into this as we go throughout that. So good on them for including that certain information there when it comes to Royal City Cannabis .co. Okay, let's talk about, Chris, the history when we're talking about Dukem. What is the lineage with this cultivar?
Yeah, so the lineage, it's two interesting ones, Dino. It's a Chernobyl crossed with a Commando. And so really kind of unique cultivars there. The Chernobyl is a cross of Blood Wreck with Jack the Ripper. It sounds a little violent there.
Wow.
And then right. And the Commando is a grapefruit crossed with a Mendo Perps crossed with an Empress Kush. So it's really kind of several well-known fan favorite cultivars in the genetics. Like the Mendo Perps is super popular. I got to try it in Amsterdam, and it was delicious and very notable. Like it's one I'll never forget. Trainwreck also legendary sativa, very popular, and then Jack the Ripper as well. People love that one too. So some good genetics in the Dukem for sure, Dean.
Yeah,
and actually,
I just want to mention, when you see the colors of this, you'll realize where the purple comes from. But the Chernobyl, which is Blood Wreck and Jack the Ripper, like that just sounds like somebody's nightmare right there. Like Jack the Ripper is chasing you through Chernobyl, and it's just a blood wreck everywhere. Like seriously, I want to wake up from that nightmare. But I'm sure the cannabis is delicious. I've just always wondered about some of the names that people go with on the cultivars, because that literally sounds like a nightmare I had about 3 weeks ago. So interesting names, and more interesting names from the breeder as well, and some of the other things that they've produced, eh?
Oh boy, for sure, Dean. Dukem was bred by Cabin Fever Seed Breeders, and they're a consortium of 3 growers from Northern California. And they started in 2010. And they're responsible for some real unique cultivars, such as Sweaty Yeti, as well as Flamin' Alien, Albino Leprechaun, and then Alexander Kush, which I feel has got to be a play on Alexander Keith beer, maybe. But yeah, there's some really funny names there. And I think for me, it's, we get these cool names in cannabis because the names are created by stoners. A lot of times it's, all right, we're gonna smoke this new bud we grew and come up with a name while we're stoned.
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like Chernobyl, not gonna make you feel like you've walked through a radioactive town, but it's just a play on things. It's a little bit of a farce.
I think I have all these names of cultivars I would love to create and call them, but I think that would be fun to go into something without a name in mind. You know what the lineage is, but if you want to go with that, smoke it, vape it, whatever, after you grow it, and then how you feel during that experience, the name comes from that. Like, I kind of think, I don't know, but I kind of think maybe that's how some of it happens. I would love to do that. Just get high, and then whatever comes to mind is like, yeah, I'm going with that name. Like, I think that would be kind of cool, don't you?
Absolutely. I think that would be one of the coolest jobs in the world too, to come up with the names. I saw a video of I believe it was Snoop Dogg and Burner, the guy behind Cookies, and they just kind of got together this really nice pool setting, and Burner had a couple of big bags of new cannabis, and they just smoked it together and kind of discussed, like, as Snoop was hitting it, I can't remember the name he came up with, but it was just off the top of his head how that kind of intense stone at that very moment made him feel, and then just let it flow.
Yeah, I'd be like, popcorn clouds. That's what this is going to be called, or something like that, whatever comes to mind. But by the way, the THC percentage on this is 18.75. We'll tell you where that kind of fits on our scale for, beginners, intermediate, and experience. And when we talk about what's in a name, this is where I kind of mentioned off the top about the Duke Nukem, which is a pretty popular video game. Hence, there was probably copyright issues. So this is kind of just a combination of what the illicit market name is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of like the Duke Nukem celebrity name there. Just mash them together. And I think, yeah, you're right, Dean, with the copyright reasons. I think as well, from a regulatory standpoint, Duke Nukem being, a video game of, it's an old school first person shooter game, where you go around killing alien bastards. So it's kind of maybe, I guess, aimed at children too. So, I mean, that's something you might have but I feel like it's such an old video game that all the children that did play Duke Nukem are all of age at this point.
Yeah, like I think you'd be safe like calling something like Space Invaders 2 or something like that, right? Because what kid today knows anything about Space Invaders or asteroids?
Yeah, totally, man.
So that's what we're going with when it comes to what's in a name. And any other thoughts on the name there with Duke Nukem? Or I wasn't really a big Duke Nukem video game player, so I don't really know that game very well. Doom I played, and that was a first-person shooter. But did you play a lot of Duke Nukem?
I was the same as you, buddy. Didn't play a lot of Duke Nukem. I was a Doom. I played the Wolfenstein game as well. Those kind of old school first person shooter games. I looked up some Duke Nukem, I guess, covers. It kind of reminded me of like Guile from Street Fighter. So like blonde, slick kind of hair, and then sunglasses, and the leather coat, kind of like with the big gun. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, let's get into the look, and if you're watching, you can see it on the screen there. And again, if you want to check it out, head to our YouTube channel, Cannabis 101 Podcast, and we stream on social media. You can see it's a small, kind of dark navy blue tub. This sort of tub with that rounded lid, it reminds me of R2-D2, which I kind of like. So, I wish everything came in glass, or as Aquilita does, reclaimed ocean plastic, and, putting out 2 tons of packaging with reclaimed ocean. That's great. But if it is going to be plastic, I like color in my plastic, as you know, and I like that that lid. It's just kind of very cool. What do you think of the packaging?
I like the uniqueness of it for sure. I love your comparison of R2-D2. I think that's pretty awesome. It does have the little lip on the inside there, something I kind of wish I hope LPs kind of get away from. But I mean, the fact that it comes with the Bovita pack is super nice as well. So,
yep.
And I think size wise, it's not too bad. Could be maybe a touch smaller on the size, but I mean, we still got to get all the information on the label too. So, yeah.
I feel you could probably fit 7 grams in there.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure.
And maybe at some point that will happen, and the size comes down. As you mentioned, lip on the inside, that's the negative, but the great positive is the Bovita pack. This was in great shape. This cannabis that I pulled out, it was sponge worthy. Definitely, it was nice and soft and squishy. So I dig it, and I really dig the look of this. So when I pulled it out and first took a look at it, and I mentioned the purple earlier from some of the lineage. There it is. Like I mean, that just looks gorgeous, man.
Yeah, buddy. It's a really nice trim job too on the 8th that I got. Really nice dense nugs, but yeah, anytime I see the purple, it gets me excited for sure. And also really good trichome coverage on the batch that I got.
Yeah, and good size nugs as well. Like those are pretty good size, very very dense. So full marks for the trim job, the look, the feel. It smells great, as we're going to get into in a second. But it's got that healthy sort of smell to it as well. Now, what do you got for us when it comes to the terpene profile?
Yeah, for sure. So the terpene profile, our dominant terpene is awesomine. That's one we don't talk about too much. It's come up here and there. And that's the terpene that's kind of got a sweet and herbaceous aroma and flavor to it. Farnesene is up next, and that's kind of a sweet, fruity terpene. It's found in the skin of an apple. So it's commonly associated with the apple smell. And then we've got caryophyllene as our third one there, and that's black pepper kind of spiciness. I know that's one of your faves there, Dino. So a good little mix of terps there for sure.
Indeed. And some different ones too that we don't often see, but that farnesene is one that I'm really, really enjoying. And we've had that in a couple of different cultivars as well. So when it comes to the smell, I know one of your favorite parts when you can come in studio is when we give the cannabis straight to Nosy McGee, my wife Trish, and she gives it the old smell test. I think I might start recording those, and then we'll edit them into this.
I love that idea, buddy.
I think that would be quite funny. But I'll tell you, she got a bit of a berry, like a sweet berry kind of smell. What are some of the smells that you associate Dukem with?
So for me, it's an earthiness, definitely. That was kind of the initial thing, and then it like a sweet kind of tropical punch, kind of just overlays on top of that earthy smell. And I found kind of the same thing when I ground it up as well.
Yeah,
Those are my two takeaways.
I found definitely earthy, and I found that, and this is something I recommend to people too. After the grind, right? It smells a little bit different, and I really get that earthy, and the spice comes out a little bit more, I find, after the grind than it did. So, that kind of when everything's broken up a little bit and the freshness really, really comes out. So I definitely dig the earthiness and some sweetness there as well. And I get some sweetness on the taste as well. What do you get when you fire this up?
So for me, I was consuming it in joints as I do. I definitely got like a spicy sweetness, kind of similar to the smell, with some kind of lavender floral notes to it. And then on the exhale for me, it was kind of a citrus, fruity, like orangey aftertaste and exhale. But super enjoyable. I thought it was a nice smooth smoke for sure.
Yeah, I'm just firing up the Supernova, my Volcano hybrid. I get a nice sweetness on the inhale when I have this, especially in a bag, and I find like I even just smell the sweetness right now as it's filling up this bag. So I get definitely a sweetness on the inhale that you had talked, and I also get some floral notes as well on the exhale as well. So it's got a very appealing taste. Like it's a very nice taste, despite the scary names that are in the lineage. It's just I don't know. It's like to quote Frank the Tank from Old School. Once it hits your lips, man, it's just so tasty. So I really, really enjoy the taste of this, especially in a bag with something like the Volcano, where you can really get into the terpenes and the smells and things like that. So I enjoyed it. What was your experience like when you had it?
Amazing. I'm a big fan of the Dukem, Dean. The first time I tried Dukem, it was actually in a rosin wrap mixed with beef hash. So I kind of got like I got Dukem on steroids for the first time. That was actually Dylan Bruck from Plant Life. He's one that exposed me to it. He had a lot of great things to say, and he's actually our Plant Life, I guess, cannabis expert. He's the guy that's has tried and sampled out over 420 cultivars on the rec market, and has a review on all of them. And he had great reviews about the Dukem, so maybe you want to check it out. For me, it's a very clear-headed high, super tasty, super smooth, very uplifting on the mood. And I find that comes pretty quick. Halfway through my joint, I'm already kind of smiling, starting to feel really, really nice. I think it's awesome for creativity and productivity. There's definitely like a nice head kind of buzz to it, but it's not too much. It's not unmanageable, but it's definitely good for, getting your mind going. I think too, Dino, it's a great wake and bake cultivar. Absolutely. Like rolling out of bed, starting your day with a Dukem is really, really nice. And then I started mixing my second joint. I'd make it half Dukem and half kind of like a really chill indica, nothing too sedative though. D Bubba and Dukem, where it was a really great mix for kind of my second and third joints of the day. Big up for me for the Dukem. It's a nice cultivar for sure.
I think, when we talk about wake and bakes, for me, sometimes I don't like to start out with really high sativas, high THC sativas. Sometimes I get a little bit of anxiety, so there's some certain ones I like to stay away from. I love starting the day with a hybrid if I can a little bit, but one that's going to give me some productivity. So that's why I really like this, is that I can have this as my first one of the day, if it is in the morning, if I'm doing a wake and bake, and I'm not worried about, getting the anxious thoughts like some really high sativas do. That's what I really kind of like about the sound of this one, and what it can do for you, which leads us into the 3 W's. So who, what, and when is this good for, Chris?
Yeah, for sure, Dino. So who it's good for? Intermediates. It's kind of a level 1.5, I'd say. If you've been in the beginner zone for a bit, you can be kind of exploring, and you're ready for, I guess, the next step up. I think this is a good option for that, as it's not too high of the THC, and it's not too buzzy of a sativa. What it's good for? Wake and bake, as I mentioned. It's really nice for that. It's good for if you're looking to feel uplifted and euphoric. It's excellent for getting that list of chores done as well, being productive. I think it's also good for, forgetting about the stresses that, the everyday stresses that we encounter. I find it definitely gets your mind off that. And also, if you're looking to get your munchies on, Dukem is really good for that as well. When it's good for is daytime use. I'd say I wouldn't recommend, hitting a bowl of Dukem right before bed. Your mind's going to race a little bit, but I feel like it's definitely daytime. Wake and bake's really nice for it too.
Beautiful. That is awesome. So we've been talking about Dukem from Royal City Cannabis. It is about a 65-35 sativa, and it's really, really, really tasty. So, okay, really quickly, you guys have the Plant Life Rewards app, and that is going to be already in play by the time we talk next week. Tell us about it.
Yeah, totally, Dean. So yeah, it's the Plant Life family rewards apps. So we're starting a family here, and it's an app that you can have on your phone, and you're gonna have a wallet, and it's gonna keep track of points. There's gonna be some really awesome incentives with it. 15% off your first purchase, 10% off your first online order, and then you collect points as you are in a Plant Life store. So you just need to come down, check us out, visit us. And then, it's just a really great way to kind of stay up to date on things with Plant Life. So we're super stoked about the launch here. It's coming up soon. So yeah, next time we do talk, Dino, I'll let you know how it's going.
Awesome. You can check out some information at plantlifecannabis.com, and you can sign up for the Plant Life Family Rewards right there on the website, or grab the app. Easy as that. Chris, thanks so much. I really, really enjoy this Dukem. I want to get back to it now, so I'm going to let you go, and we'll chat next week. Thanks, buddy.
Sounds good, Dino, man. Thanks for having me.
This is the Cannabis 101 podcast. It's all part of the cannabis life experience. Turning the wheel of cannabis one toke at a time.
I often mention the great partners and supporters, and Christine Vandalo and her husband Kevin Dabbs do a wonderful job with the voice work for this show and a bunch of my other shows, and you can find those at podcastalley.ca. I've got a bunch of sports shows and this show. So that's my life, cannabis and sports. And this show, as we talk about it, is just about done. Time to wrap it up. Thank you very much for tuning in. You, the listener and the viewer, are the most important supporter and partner that we can have. So thank you very much. If you like this show and you watched it on YouTube, or you watched it on any of our streaming social media channels, hit subscribe and click that bell button on YouTube, and you'll get an update every time and a notice that we put something out. And we try to have something Monday to Friday every day released on that channel. If you're listening, wherever you get your podcast, just hit subscribe, and you'll also get notified for that. And if you did like the show, please let us know by leaving us a review wherever you are watching. Love hearing from our listeners with feedback, questions, or just telling us about their experience with the plant. Absolutely love it. And a reminder about the Weed Weekly. It comes out every Friday right into your inbox. It recaps the show if you missed anything. We've got some news and some history and a free giveaway, as well. So free stuff just coming right into your inbox. We spin the wheel of names, and you could go home with a prize pack. You just have to sign up at cannabis101podcast.ca. and you are in the mix for the Weed Weekly. You can get contests as well at cannabis101podcast.ca, past episodes, and much, much more. A big thanks to Stonesmiths for helping us with this show. Big thanks to Fatty Kamel from All Risks Insurance Brokers. And, of course, Chris Ianson, a regional manager from Plant Life Cannabis, as we did Dukem from Royal City Cannabis. Absolutely delicious. We are back at it, as mentioned, changing in the programming. Tuesday will be hour number 1. We will have David Wiley of the OZ for This Week in Cannabis News. We will have Melka LaBelle from the Green Generation Company on the business of cannabis, weed word of the day, cannabis question, and much more. So much more on Tuesday mornings, 4:20 a.m. Mountain Time. This show will be uploaded. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you sticking with us, even though we missed a bunch of shows due to my health situation. Thank you so much to Fatty. Thank you so much to Chris and you, the listener. Thank you. Take care. And as we do, we always leave you with their marijuana song from the artist My Dead Dog. A reminder, it's not just about getting high. It's about getting healthy. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yeah.